Hi, welcome to the Success Seeds. The Spiritual Teaching of Ramana Maharshi is a book that presents the teachings of the great Indian sage, Ramana Maharshi, who is widely regarded as one of the most influential spiritual teachers of the 20th century. He believed that the realization of this truth is the key to spiritual liberation and that this realization can be attained through self-inquiry and meditation. In this book, we will explore key lessons from the spiritual teaching of Ramana Maharshi that can help us deepen our understanding of the nature of the self and the path to spiritual awakening. Lesson 1. The True Nature of the Self. The teachings of Ramana Maharshi emphasize the importance of understanding the true nature of the self. According to Maharshi, the true nature of the self is pure awareness that is beyond the limitations of the ego and the mind. This awareness is the foundation of our being, and it is always present, even when we are not aware of it. Maharshi taught that the realization of the true nature of the self is the key to spiritual liberation. He believed that the ego creates a false sense of self that causes us to identify with our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This identification with the ego creates a sense of separation from our true nature, which leads to suffering and a sense of incompleteness. Maharshi encouraged his students to inquire into the nature of the self by asking the question, "Who am I?" This inquiry helps us to recognize the true nature of the self and to overcome the limitations of the ego and the mind. The goal of this inquiry is to become aware of the underlying consciousness that is present in all of us. According to Maharshi, the true nature of the self is not something that can be attained through external means or through the accumulation of knowledge or experience. It is a realization that comes from within and can only be attained through self-inquiry and the cultivation of inner silence and awareness. Lesson 2. The Illusion of the Ego. Ramana Maharshi taught that the ego is an illusion that creates a false sense of self. According to him, the ego is a product of the mind that causes us to identify with our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. His identification with the ego creates a sense of separation between ourselves and the world around us, which leads to suffering and a sense of incompleteness. Maharshi believed that the ego is not an inherent part of our true nature, but rather a creation of the mind. He taught that the ego is a false sense of self that we cling to in order to give ourselves a sense of identity and purpose. However, this identification with the ego ultimately causes us to experience suffering, as we become attached to our thoughts, emotions, and experiences, and we identify with them as being a part of who we are. Maharshi encouraged his students to recognize the illusion of the ego and to inquire into the nature of the self beyond the limitations of the ego and the mind. He believed that by recognizing the illusion of the ego, we can begin to let go of our attachment to it and experience a deeper sense of inner peace and contentment. Lesson 3. The Power of Self-Inquiry. Self-inquiry is a central theme in the teachings of Ramana Maharshi. He believed that self-inquiry is a powerful tool for realizing the true nature of the self and overcoming the limitations of the ego and the mind. Through self-inquiry, Maharshi believed that individuals can gain a deeper understanding of their true nature and recognize the limitations of the ego and the mind. He taught that by focusing one's attention inward and questioning the nature of the self, individuals can gradually overcome their identification with the ego and experience a deeper sense of inner peace and contentment. Maharshi also believed that self-inquiry is a continuous process that requires dedication and effort. He encouraged his students to maintain a consistent practice of self-inquiry and to cultivate a state of inner silence and awareness that can help them to access their true nature and overcome the limitations of the ego and the mind. Lesson 4. The Importance of Silence. Silence was an important aspect of Ramana Maharshi's teachings. He believed that silence is essential for cultivating inner peace and awareness, and for accessing the true nature of the self. Maharshi taught that external silence, such as the absence of noise, is important for creating a conducive environment for meditation and self-inquiry. However, he also emphasized the importance of cultivating inner silence, which involves quieting the mind and letting go of the incessant chatter of thoughts and emotions. He believed that cultivating inner silence is a gradual process that requires consistent practice and effort. Maharshi also taught that silence is not merely the absence of sound, but rather a state of being that is characterized by inner stillness and awareness. He believed that the cultivation of inner silence leads to a deeper understanding of the true nature of the self and a greater sense of inner peace and contentment. Lesson 5. The Role of Meditation. Meditation was a key practice in Ramana Maharshi's teachings. He believed that meditation is a powerful tool for cultivating inner peace and awareness, and for accessing the true nature of the self. Maharshi taught that meditation involves the cultivation of a state of inner stillness and awareness, which allows individuals to access their true nature beyond the limitations of the ego and the mind. He believed that meditation is a gradual process that requires consistent practice and effort. According to Maharshi, there are many different approaches to meditation, and he encouraged his students to find a method that worked best for them. He believed that the most important aspect of meditation is to cultivate a state of inner silence and awareness, and to maintain a consistent practice. Maharshi also emphasized the importance of integrating the practice of meditation into daily life, rather than viewing it as a separate activity. He believed that meditation is not only a practice to be done in solitude, but also a way of being in the world with greater awareness and presence. Lesson 6. The importance of surrender. Surrender was a central theme in Ramana Maharshi's teachings. He believed that surrendering to a higher power or to the true nature of the self is a powerful tool for overcoming the limitations of the ego and the mind, and for accessing a state of inner peace and contentment. Maharshi taught that surrender involves letting go of the ego's need for control and surrendering to the will of a higher power, whether it be God or the true nature of the self. He believed that surrender is not a passive act, but rather an active process that requires a willingness to let go of the ego's attachment to control and to trust in the guidance of a higher power. According to Maharshi, surrender is a gradual process that requires consistent practice and effort. He believed that surrender is not a one-time event, but rather a continuous process of letting go and surrendering to the present moment. He taught that by surrendering to the true nature of the self, individuals can access a state of inner stillness and awareness that transcends the limitations of the ego and the mind. Thanks for watching. For more such videos, please subscribe.